Hi, and welcome to Excel Heaven. The tutorial is one in a series exploring the uses of subtotals in Excel. In this tutorial, I'm going to look at how to use Vlookup to extract balances from a subtotaled list. This spreadsheet shows a report with the values being taken from another sheet of subtotal data. Typically, in an example like this, the balances may be fed in monthly from an accounting system. However, to produce the summary may not be as easy as first appears. This workbook is divided into two sections. The data sheet contains account balances. The report sheets contain lists of the accounts in a format used for reporting purposes. One of the advantages of this layout is that different reporting requirements can be accommodated while referencing the same downloaded data. Looking at a report sheet, you can see that the sequence of the accounts is different to the sequence in the datasheet. The focus here is on payroll costs, so it may be for the HR manager. The sales manager may want to focus on cost of sales. Each could have their own sheet with their own structure, both extracting balances from the one datasheet. On the datasheet, I have a list of balances by account by month. The first thing I need to do is to calculate an aggregate balance by account. To do this, I simply go to the Data ribbon and under the Outline group, I select Subtotal. For every change in account, I want the sum of the amount field and click OK. By collapsing the list to Outline Level 2, I can see the subtotal for each account. Before I go any further, I just want to point out something. I'm a great fan of naming ranges. This makes life easier for a whole variety of reasons. To insert a name, I first select the range. On the collapsed list, where everything is visible, I can simply scroll to select the range. But if I expand the list again, so that the end is no longer visible, I can use the shortcut Ctrl+A to do the same job. In the name box, I then enter the name of the range I want to use. Let's call it Dataset. You will notice that as I cannot leave a space in the name of a range, I'm using an underscore instead. We will have a fuller discussion on named ranges in another session. Now back to a report sheet. For the sake of the tutorial, I will bring in both the name of the account and the values. To do this, I will use the Vlookup function. First account 40,000 and the account name. In cell B2, I start by typing =V. As soon as I do, a drop-down with all the functions starting with V appears. To minimize the risk of mistyping, I can simply double-click on Vlookup to select it, and the parameters for the particular function appear, the first of which is lookup value. The lookup value is what you want to base the lookup on, in this case 40,000, which is in cell A2. I then type a comma, which brings me to the second parameter, the table array. The table array refers to the list you want to look up, or the where. I could go over to the data sheet and highlight cells A1 to E54. However, I have already named this range Dataset. Because I know the name of the range, as soon as I type D, again the drop-down appears. In addition to possible functions, named ranges are also shown as indicated by the icon on the left. You can see from the list the dataset is shown, and double-clicking on it inserts the range into the function. Alternatively, if you are not sure what the range is called, you can hit the F3 key to display a list of named ranges, and double-clicking on it from there. Another comma brings us to the third parameter, the column index number. This represents the number of columns to the right where the data you want to extract lies, in this case 2. This may be slightly confusing, as I only have to move over by one column, but the column you are looking up, in this case column A, counts as column 1, so the account name lies in column 2. Another comma brings me to the final parameter, the range lookup. You will notice that this is enclosed in square brackets, which indicates that it is an optional parameter. I don't want to get into discussion on the optional aspect of this parameter here, as it, I feel, should always be used and should never be left blank. But please see the dedicated tutorial on Vlookup on the importance of this parameter. The range lookup takes either a true or false value. In this case, I am using false. And finally, a closing bracket. I can now copy this into the cells opposite the other accounts. One of the advantages of using named ranges is that as I copy the function down, the reference to the dataset holds. Should you decide not to use a named range, remember to make cell reference to the table array absolute before copying. Now for the values. Rather than beginning from scratch, I can use the function in B2 as the basis for the value field. Going back to cell B2, I can copy the contents and paste it into cell C2. But I now have to edit it slightly. Clicking into the function, you can see that the VLOOKUP value is pointing at cell B2. This is because I copied the cell to the right. It should, of course, be still pointing at cell A2, so I can move the reference across. I also need to change the column offset to 5 to pick up the value column. The function picks up account 40,000 and gets the value opposite it, 151,360. But the value I want is the subtotal, with a value of 2 million. So how can I get the lookup to go down that far? Let's look at this more closely. Going back to the lookup value, it is pointing at cell A2 and getting the value 40,000. The function scans down the account column in the named range dataset and stops at the first instance of account 40,000. It then comes across 5 columns and picks up the contents of that cell. But what I really needed to do is to continue scanning down until it finds 40,000 total. So how can I get the function to do that? Actually, it's quite easy. To edit the function using the Insert Function button, just to help see what is actually going on. After A2, type an ampersand, double quotes, followed by a space and the word total, and ending with closing quotes. What the function now reads is, look up the contents of cell A2, that is 40,000, and tag on a space and the word total, as you can see here. Coming down to the formula result, you can see that it is now picking up the correct result, 2 million. This technique can of course be modified should your subtotals show the average or count, etc. of the balances. I can now copy the formula down and the report is complete. Well, not quite. You will notice that I have a cross-check section below the report. This may not, of course, be included in the print range for the report, but it is there for your benefit. It is always recommended that you build in checks, controls or alerts from the outset during spreadsheet design. By including the grand total from the datasheet, I can verify that all accounts have been included. For example, in this case I have values coming in by month. At the beginning of the year, I would include on the summary sheet all the accounts I expect to use, but some new account may arise in the course of the year, which could be missed in the summary if a check was not included. Don't forget, spreadsheets are more than just numbers and functions. Structure and integrity are essential elements and should be incorporated from the outset. So, by copying down the VLOOKUP and stripping out the space total, as it is already in cell A13, I can check that all values have been captured. I can now copy the functions on the HR report directly to the Sales Manager's report, not forgetting to cross-check. And what do I have? I have 2 happy managers. In summary, in this tutorial, we have looked at inserting subtotals and named ranges. We also looked at the use of VLOOKUP to pick up the name of the accounts, but when we used the same function to pick up the values, it didn't quite work as we wanted. By adding a text string to the cell reference using an ampersand, we were able to pick up the subtotal value. This highlights the concept that functions can be manipulated to add versatility. We also noted the importance of including cross-checks to verify the integrity of our spreadsheet. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found this session useful. Don't forget to subscribe to Excel Heaven for other tutorials.